talk to you today. Just so everyone has an idea about you, who you are. We just get, start from the beginning. Where did you grow up? How things have been, and who you are.
Okay, so the name's G-Man. I grew up in Derby, in a little town called Allington, which is near the Spider Bridge, off the ring road that takes you from the A52 Nottingham to Derby, Brancliffe Way. I grew up all my life in Derby. Then I moved from Derby to Nottingham in 2013. Now, sorry, yes, DJ. I thought you had a spasm.
For anyone that doesn't know what I just did there behind the camera, I was signaling DJ.
Yes. So I was, bless you, I forgot that. I was a radio DJ, BBC Radio Derby from 1986 to 2010. And I did a gospel show. Then I did a show which was just talking about anything and anything for an hour. And it was live studio guests and no planning, just off the cuff. Then I went from that before that, or during that same time, I was on Carlton TV doing a show called Drumbeat and another show that I was part of the research and producing for called Soul Music, which featured Apache Indian. So that's my background, that's my media background. And then I also did a little project called Zen, Zen, which is a combination of where two rivers crossed when Jesus started his public ministry. It said after he was tempted in the wilderness, he stood where the two rivers cross. That's Zebulun and Naphtali. So I formed ZE for Zebulun and N for Naphtali and called it Zen. And we, for the few years we were active, we'd do things like help people, companies, individuals. We would finance a project that was supporting ex-prostitutes, or there's a young sports people, getting funding and stuff like that. One of the people we funded or helped was in Wimbledon a few weeks ago. So that's my background.
Amazing. So just going back in terms of history and things like that, where did you grow up throughout your life?
Derby. So there's an area in Derby called Allington, famous for its Spider Bridge. So if you're coming from, say, Nottingham, you get towards the outskirts of Derby, you come down Rainsway. And then from Rainsway, I lived about, say, 2-3 miles from there. So I grew up in Allington, one of the first people of colour to live in Allington. And Allington back in the day was a huge council estate. So all I ever knew was, well, clothes via catalogues. You probably never heard of Freeman's catalogue.
Never.
Yeah, well, don't judge me, my brother. So what would happen was I had 3 other sisters, and we didn't have TV games or whatever, PlayStation. So what we would do is get the catalogue out, and dependent on which coin, who won the coin toss, determined which part of the catalogue you start picking clothes from. So if you're playing against sisters, likelihood if they win, they want to go to the women's section. And then you'd have to start picking clothes from the women's section. And that's how I kind of got cool about clothes. I could choose women's clothes for women, men's clothes for men. So that's my background. So I came from.
So in terms of the fashion thing, is that when you felt like first in love with fashion then?
Yes, because when you are the second youngest and everybody above you is female as such, and your big brother, he's much older. So every hand-me-down would come from girls. So I'd get not a shirt, I'd get a blouse sort of thing. Didn't get no skirts, clearly not. But so you kind of learnt how to manage expectations. You could never get what you really wanted unless it was your Christmas or your birthday. And my birthday and Christmas are in the same month. So if I didn't get what I wanted for my birthday, you're getting it at Christmas type scenario. So that's how I got into clothes. And, because times and money was tight, you couldn't afford to have a social life and buy clothes at the same time. So I never got into drinking or going to restaurants. All I was into was buying this item item and buying that item. Close, close, close.
Is that sort of why this emporium as such has come into place? Like where in here there's a lot of archival pieces. Is that also the reason why you sort of gravitated towards those?
Yeah, because if you look at old school designers, so designs, clothing designs really kicked off in the 80s, right? Pretty big in the 90s as well, and the noughties. Now, if you look in the last, say, 10 years and you go to any major high street, the shops are all closing down, they're all online. And in terms of innovation, you don't see much of it. Yes, I'm old, but it doesn't mean I don't appreciate style and coolness and everything. So you tend to find all those bits that you really like backwards. So I'd go on sites like Grailed. And another site that I really recommend if you've got the eye and know what you're looking for is Vinted, because they'll have the thing that you. I got some Yoji Yamamoto trainers, right? Vintage trainers, black, £13, including postage and packing, vintage. Now you're not going to get that on Grailed at that price. So if you know what you're looking for, so all what you're seeing in this shop, this is the oldest item is 11 years old, and it's my own personal clothing. And if you went to my house, if you think in this shop there must be say 200 items, there's at least 200 items I have at home on a rail too, which is like things from the last 4 years. You know, you mentioned when you first came in about Julius. I've got a few bits by Julius, lots of stuff by Japanese designers, because that's my go-to area. Love Japanese.
The Guidi boots as well, and the Moon Rooster.
Yes, I mean, again, right, when I first saw the Guidi, I was blown away by them. And when you wear them, I mean, they're very expensive. However, it's very difficult to get what you really like cheap by like Yoji trainers I mentioned. So the Guidi is incredibly comfortable, beautiful looking boots, and the leather, it's horse leather, so it's not like normal leather, cow's leather. It just reacts differently with wear on your feet. Beautiful pair of boots.
100%. Like when I came here the first time and I saw those, I was like, hold on a second, am I seeing what I'm seeing here? And then you confirmed that they are the Guidis, and it's like it's crazy.
Yes, I mean, when it comes to footwear, those two on the top layer alone, that's £2 easy. And if you added all the other shoes on the other side, you're talking grands. But people wouldn't pay that for it because it's alien for them. If this was a shop which the footballers knew about, they'd buy the stock because they know some of the things I've got you can't get.
Exactly.
Doesn't matter where you live, you're not going to be able to find it. So rather than try to persuade somebody of the quality, I say to myself and I say to them, do you like it? Yes. Try it on. Love it. Do you want to buy it? But I can't afford it. I didn't ask you that. What do you want to pay? And it doesn't matter what the price is. Some people say this is an insulting price. My argument is, well, don't insult me then. But they're not going to give me what that thing is worth. And the main thing for me is not trying to make a sale. My main thing is talking to whoever. Doesn't matter who comes in, I'm all about the talk and changing lives and connecting with a person. I've waited 44 years to be in retail. No one would give me a job before. So when I got the opportunity after 44 years to do this, I wasn't going to do what I was thinking of doing 44 years previously because as a teenager, now I'm a man of maturity and I think differently. And there's things here that I'd rather it go to a good home of somebody who couldn't afford it than go to the home of somebody who's rich and can afford it and will just use it to clean the car in. The cost is irrelevant. I need the money, but I don't need it that much to break somebody's dream. You walked in and if you went, wow, this is amazing. My missus will tell you, she knows that I'm more likely to give it than to sell it.
With when I came in the other day, you explained to me your first experience with someone who sort of acted in the same way as you do now.
Yes,
Is it okay if you just retell it
no
again,
problem.
just for the people watching?
Right, so you have to go back again to the 80s. This is like the birth of all these big names. Comedy Garçon started 81, Yoji 81, both at the same fashion show. So I didn't really know much about Yoji. However, I knew about this shop in Manchester that sold to the footballers in the Manchester area and the Liverpool area and the rugby league players, Widnes and Wigan. So I went to the shop with a mate of mine, glass fronted. Sitting behind the glass in the door is the owner. Normal looking guy, black suit, white shirt, like Lagerfeld style. And he let you in via a buzzer. So I went into the shop, looked around the shop. I'd never seen anything like it before. It was all Yoji mainly. And I'd never seen Yoji before, never knew nothing about it. And I go downstairs and I go upstairs and I'm on my way out the shop. And as I'm about to leave the shop, I pull on the door to let myself out. And before I could pull on it, he asked me, "Did you see anything you liked?" And I said, "Yes, I did, but nothing I could afford." And I chuckled. And he looked and he pressed the buzzer and he locked the door. And he said to me, "I don't like your attitude." And he leans back so he could leverage himself to get up off the chair. And I looked and I remember looking at him down as he was low and like that. And he just took over my personal space. Now, if you've never seen Game of Death by Bruce Lee and the basketball player who stars in it, Abdul Karim Jabbar, you see that if you ever just go on Google and you see the size difference between the two. I was Bruce Lee and he was Abdul Karim, 7'3". My Tyson Fury is 6'9". I stood next to Tyson. This guy would make Tyson look like a dwarf. And he says, is there anything you saw? I said, yes, a shirt. He said, how much? I said, £175. He said, how much are you prepared to pay for it? I chuckled because I wanted to get out of the shop as quickly as possible. So I thought if I insulted him, he'd let me just go. And I said, 25 quid, and I chuckled. And he said, wrap the shirt, give it to the man. I looked at him and I thought, this is a wind up. Now, that was 1988. I went to his shop 3 times every year from 88 to 96. On every occasion, I did not spend less than £500. My average wage in the 80s was probably 29, so £129 to £150. So spending £500 every 3 months, that's a considerable amount of money to me. And that got me into clothes big time, big time. And so that philosophy has never left me. And I will not let somebody walk into the shop and really like something and walk out without me being in a position to making their dream come true, like what happened to me in the 80s. Make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's great. It's great. And I know we discussed this before, but it's just great hearing it again as well. Fashion itself, I know you said sort of where the love came from.
Yes.
But what do you see it as now for you? Is it sort of part of you? Is it a spirituality thing? What is it to you now? Why is it that you love it so much now, and why do you continue to love it?
Okay, you can't live in this country without into being wearing clothes. You may not be into clothes, but you will wear clothes because if you don't, you get arrested for being naked, right? So if you're going to wear something, or even if you're going to do something, why don't you do it well? If you're going to be a DJ, why can't you be the best DJ? If you're going to cook food, why can't you be the best cook the world's ever seen? You may not ever get there. So if you look at, say, with clothes, right? I was also surrounded by people because you gravitate to what you like. And all my friends, if they didn't work in a clothes shop, and that's how we became close, they were into clothes one way or another. So one of the biggest influences for me growing up was a younger guy called Damon Haig, who ultimately went on to become world champion boxer, but it's another story. So he used to work in Derby's in a shop called Limey's, and he was 17 working in Limey's. Now, I can't even begin to tell you how iconic Limey's was. And it took me 2 or 3 years, courage, to walk into Limey's. I wouldn't walk in by my friend. My friend had to give me the courage because I always thought I can't walk in there. Then once I got in there, I became friends with all of them, became part of the fitment, and then I'd go from that shop to another shop in Derby that branched into Nottingham called Guy's. Great shop. So fashion has always been huge in my life.
Yeah.
Is it still huge now? Once I've got rid of everything, when I say got rid of, it makes it sound like I don't appreciate what I've got. However, it's time for the next phase in my life. So in 5 weeks' time from this date, I will be gone from this shop. And my dream is to have nothing to put on the rails and go home with only the clothes on my back, one way or another. Will I still continue to look? Maybe. Do I love it? It will always be a part in my heart. Like my football team is Liverpool. In the 80s, we used to win the league all the time. Then 1990 was the last time we won the league. Now, since I've been an adult, the last time we won the league bar this year was 2020. Because of lockdown, or 21, you couldn't see them celebrating.
Yeah.
And that was my dream, to see Liverpool win. This year gone, they did it. So now, Liverpool and me gone our separate ways. However, if you put on YNWA, if you know, you know, you see me reaching for my hanky. Most people tell you, even now, as I'm talking to you, I had to take my mind, because once I'm locked on all this.
Yeah.
So do I love clothes? Yes. But I realized to myself, there are people out there, they're starting their journey. Mine's coming to an end when it comes to clothes. So if I never see any of this again, it's life. And where I'm going to, I don't need a shearling. I don't need thick boots and stuff like that. I need sandals. I need light footwear. I need light baggy t-shirts. It's over for me. I'm done. It's over. But I love it. I do the passion. I say I open at 11. I close at 4. We normally leave at something to 6 because I'll talk.
Happened on Tuesday. When I came and saw on Tuesday, we left around 6 o'clock.
There you go.
It was worth it 100%.
For you, you're beautiful to say that. And so for me, I love the passion of a you person. And my difficulty is I want to give you everything because I feel that passion. I remember what I was like at your age, and how if somebody did me a deal, I would, even now, I think whatever a person does for me, I will outdo them. That's how I live my life, you know? So, fashion, clothes, love it. I think, was it you came in and recognized the Isaac Salam?
Yes.
Only person who's come into the shop, and you're so young and you recognize Isaac, because most people, they don't even notice anything about it. And a guy came in yesterday, tall guy, backpack on, and he stood at the door and he says, "Excuse me, are you a tailor's?" I says, "What about a butcher?" Hey, no, because again, people, some say I'm cheeky. But it's not cheeky. It's more a case of, if you want to talk to me, just talk. But don't ask me the obvious. It's like saying, "Is this a room?" Nope, it's a TARDIS. But that's still a room, a TARDIS. So yeah, I love clothes. I love my age. I shouldn't be wearing tracksuits. The size of my belly, I should not be wearing sportswear. However, if I like it, I'm buying it and I'm wearing it. You know? Feel free. No problem.
When I first met you, we spoke about your plans for Ghana,
Yes.
and you got plans for. I mean, I described it as a safe haven. I'm sure you sort of relate to it the same way.
Yes.
Tell me about your vision and where did the idea come from?
Okay. So language is beautiful. You said vision and the idea come from. So you got to go back to 1986. I'm sitting in my bedroom, well, just about to wake up to do an afternoon shift at the hospital laundry, which is probably about half a mile from where I live. So I sit upright, and at the bottom of my very small bedroom, sitting sideways on in my bedroom, is the Lord, right? Now, this is not a vision, this is Him, the Lord, literally sideways on, and He says to me, I want you to go to Ghana. So this is 86. He explains who he wants me to see to organize a trip, but he says, not this year. It's 1987. And he told me all the things that he wanted me to go there and do there. And I said to the Lord, but Lord, this is word for word, but Lord, I want to be married. And he repeats or replies to me, word for word, you do my will and I'll do yours. So the year later, just as he says, I go to Ghana. They make me a chief out there. Get this little wooden stool, which is a seat of authority. So that's 87. I come back, get married, etc., etc. Now, when I got married, one of the things that you have in wedding cakes made from the Caribbean is that lots of alcohol are on there. So the raisins and the everything drowns in rum. So you can't have no kind of, it's not going to rot. It's a preservative. I think it rotted after 3 months, the cake, right? Which X amount of years later, my marriage went the same way as the cake, right? So fast forward to the noughties. So you're talking 2020, and it's now lockdown. I see this yard in Nottingham. When I say yard, it's a house. And I like this, it's an apartment rather. And it's 280,000, but it needs a lot of work doing to it. I got no money because I'd retired probably a good 8 years before that. Not like took a pension or nothing, just said to myself, I'm no longer going to work for the man. I'm just going to be true to me and work in faith, right? So I say to my friends, which are considerable, and I text them all and say, I've seen this property I want. I need 10% deposit, which would be about 28 grand. Is there any chance of either any of you or all of you coming together and helping with the deposit? Now, I'm not sure if I had bad network around that time because nobody replied back to me. So I'm presuming it's a network issue, even though EE never had that problem with me or I never had that problem with them ever before. So then you're talking a few days after that, my wife and one of her friends were walking around the area. And in those days, you weren't allowed to walk as a crowd of people. However, you could walk in pairs just to keep fit. And they went past this shop which sells African memorabilia and foods, etc. And one of the things they were selling in the shop was this drink called bitters. Now, bitters is like a laxative drink, the bitterest, vilest drink you could ever think of putting in your mouth. However, very, very medicinal. So she took a picture and said, is this what you're looking for? And I noticed on the picture it said produce of Ghana. Then that same day, an ex-footballer friend of mine, a guy called Michael Johnson, I think he played for Forest or County and Derby, Birmingham. He sent me a picture, a video of a young lady who emigrated from Ghana, living in Nigeria, talking about a Senegalese invention which can tell you within 30 minutes if you have COVID. Now, in 2020, that was a big deal, right? And I automatically realized that the two things that were linking these two things together was Ghana. So there's 12 tribes, right, in the Bible. So the children of Israel, they're made up of 12 individuals coming together. Israel was the name of their father. Okay? So the land we call Israel is named after the father of the 12 tribes. Now, one of the tribes is a tribe called Issachar. Now, their gifting was to be able to read the signs of the times, like fortune tellers. So that's my gift. I can see connections when other people see nothing. And I knew then that the Lord was sending me to Ghana. All these years later, after the visitation in 86. So I said to the Lord, if you want me to go, you have to provide me with somebody in Ghana who knows somebody who's selling land, and the person selling it has to be reputable. They can't be, I got some land, I'm selling it. Where is it? It's Wembley Stadium, and it's cheap to you kind of scenario.
Yeah.
So, I had this guy living with me before that was told to leave the country by the wonderful British. So he goes to Ghana and he's living in Ghana. I say to my friend, speak to this guy. Don't tell him it's me. Tell him it's a Caucasian friend of ours, because I don't know if you realize this. Beautiful people from Africa, they love their own people, but they love the Caucasians even more. They live to make them love them even more. So if I said to him, don't find it for me, find it for a Caucasian brother, he'll pull out all the stops. So he did. 3 days later, land is available, £23,000. Remember, I needed 28,000 for the deposit for the.
Yeah.
Couldn't get the 28,000, so I said to the Lord, "This is you. If you want me to buy this land, provide the cash for that money, for that property, land." 2 weeks later, I get a letter, A5, from Prudential, who I did not have any connection with in my logic, saying to me, in 1990, I'd had a mortgage, and part of the policy was they was paying into a pension pot. Now I'm 55, I can draw from it. How much was it? 23,000.
Crazy.
Exactly, right? So bought the land as I'm in Ghana. So as I'm
Kumasi, right?
Kumasi,
Yeah.
right. Now I had no plans. I told you to go to Ghana. Nottingham, I love the city. So I got the money for the property. I need to get a yellow fever vaccination. I go and see a doctor in the park. Beautiful guy, lovely guy. Gives me a yellow fever vaccination. Within less than 2 weeks, it starts to react in my body. I'm watching Judge Judy. My legs go dead. My left arm goes dead. I have everything from the groin down does not work, to the sadness of my wife. But anyway, I digress. But I've got big feet. And basically speaking, I got blood clots on both lungs. I got eyesight problems. I mean, I'm a mess. I don't want to go to the doctors. However, I have pneumonia. And when you're sleeping at night, you can hear the death rattle. So my missus gets the doctor to come, paramedic, and they see us. Because I was in such a bad state, the paramedics report my wife to the authorities for neglect, because they believe, clearly watched the film Misery. If you're not watched the film, then research and look at the film. They thought she was Kathy Bates and I was the guy stuck in the bed. And they reported her. So, cut long story short, another occasion, paramedic, the doctor came to see me. They said, "How are you alive?" And they checked my oxygen levels. Now, at lockdown, they said, if your levels are at 90 or 89, go to the Queen Med. Mine was 56%. I was a corpse. And I was in hospital altogether for 31 days over 2 spells. I nearly died. I couldn't breathe. I knew I was dying, but I knew I wasn't going to die. And I remember saying to the Lord, because the doctor had just told me I'd had oxygen being forced into my lungs. We're not on about this little simple oxygen mask. It's with the big bottles,
Yeah.
and it's pressing the air into, compressing air through this mask. And the doctor said to me, specialist at my bedside, if this treatment doesn't work, there's another treatment we can try. If that doesn't work, then it's the respirator. And I stopped him and I took the mask off my face. And I said to him, no respirator and do not resuscitate. And I put the mask back on my face and let him carry on talking. That night, the Lord gave me a vision and he showed me that there's a nurse who's an atheist. I think his name was O'Neill. Beautiful guy. And he said, I'm going to work through him to heal you. Just to show you, I don't need to go through people who share the same thoughts as you. He came in. I said to him, do you believe I will be well of this mask? He said, yes, you will be very soon. The following day, he came in, no mask, no nothing, right? Healed. So, I'm living proof that there is a God and he does heal people. So, I'm now ready to go to Ghana, having got the land, got the money to buy the land. I go out there. The guy that I bought the land from is they call him Nana, and he's the chief of a village in Kumasi, right? Now, his dad, the reason why I was so a stippler for these types of people, and I wanted to travel with diplomatic ties, because I went to Manchester Airport 7 previous occasions, no problem. The 8th occasion, I go with my friend. We'd been before many times on the previous 7 occasions, and I wear jewelry, lots of silver, as you can see, right? And I never took the jewelry off going through customs, because they just put you in the scanner, etc. The 8th occasion, they said, you need to take your jewelry off. I said, it's okay, just put me through the scanner. So this Asian brother would say, let me speak to my supervisor. So this is 2015. And the supervisor says, you've got 2 choices. Well, 3 choices. You take the jewelry off. You agree to a cavity search. Or 3rd one, you turn around and go home. I said, the cavity search sounds wonderful. I've always wanted to have blue marigolds in my posterior. So he said, no problem. And I looked at the Asian brother and I said to him, you should know better. In other words, you know what we've had to go through just to believe in this world. He looked at me and he looked down. Now the lady, the supervisor, Caucasian, said, what did you say? I said, nothing. She said, what did you say? I said, nothing. And she called over 2 armed police, big, huge guns. And they said, what appears to be the problem? And I said, there's no problem, officer. He took his gun in front of, when you take your stuff off and put it through the scanner, that area. He took his gun, pushed it into my chest, knocked me on the floor in front of everybody. I said, I wasn't talking to you. My friend who was with me, Damon, went crazy. He had all the jewelry on, casual t-shirt. I was suited and booted because I wanted to avoid any reason for them to treat me. So after that experience, when I asked for the footage, they said because of data protection, it got lost. So I didn't really want to go through the normal channels anymore.
You want to go through diplomatic.
Right. So the Lord, to know that the Lord is behind the whole Ghana thing, the man who I bought the land from, his dad is the king of Ghana.
Wow.
Right. So there's not a village. This is the king of Ghana. He went to the wedding of King Charles. When King Charles came to Ghana, he stayed with this man's dad. Right. So that's my connections. Right. When I'm building, I've had no previous experience of building. I'd stopped buying properties and renting them from 2020 because I wanted to be in a position that at the drop of a hat, if I needed to go wherever the Lord wanted me to go, I could go. And so 20 years later, I'm going to Ghana. And the land that I'm building on is a acre, size of a football pitch. It's 10,500 square feet. It's a huge structure. They call it London City in the village. The lady who's the mother of the man I bought She always said, hurry up and build the property because she wants to stay there. We told her, you can stay anytime you want. Sadly, she died 2 months ago.
Wow.
So she never had the opportunity for that. However, it's a sanctuary. It means if you're watching this video and you want a cheap holiday in Ghana, all you have to do is get in touch with me, like the A-team, get in touch. We will correspond. We'll pick you up from the airport. You can stay for as long as you want, you, whoever else you want, and we'll make your experience beautiful. If you like what you've seen and experienced, you give us a donation. If you don't, we'll take you to the airport still free of charge. And it's open to anybody because this world is driving people insane. I want people to realize that there is always a way out, bar Blackpool or Belper or any of the spa towns and villages, right? And no matter where you're from, no matter what your shade is, because somebody once pointed out, if you get water from a tap and you fill 4 different colored buckets with water, red, blue, yellow, green, the only difference is the color of the container. The intent or the content is water. And so we get on, you and I, regardless of our age gap. You could easily be my very, very young son. However, and I could be your absolutely incredibly good looking big brother. you know, however, what makes people get along is the heart. If you've got a great heart and you meet somebody else with a great heart, it's like you've met somebody forever. And so when I'm building, my aim is not just to build this space. It's cost me 90 odd grand so far, and I'm not working, remember. So we've sold everything just to be there. Why? Because I know what is laying on my heart is not just a simple case of making a holiday destination. It's a case where we will be safe from what is to come. And some would say, well, what do you think's coming? I'm a believer in the Bible. And the Bible was written 2,000 years ago, telling you about things that are going to happen now. Now, the original Bible is called the Ethiopian Bible. It was written in AD 70, for example. The King James was 16 something. The Catholic Bible was 400 and something AD. So all these other books are versions of the original.
We spoke about the fashion stuff. We spoke about, your plans for Ghana. I've got one big question here, and it's really, if someone were to tell your story,
Ooh,
what would you hope they focus on?
an interesting question. It's a deep question as well. Can I phone a friend? No. I would say that why would such a driven, logical, balanced person be wanting to leave all this behind? What do they know that I'm not necessarily getting from what this little interview is? Which I'd say to them, if that's your issue, then get in touch with me. You can talk to me face to face, over the phone, email, whatever. Because my job is to convince as many people as possible. One of my dreams I'd love to do is just go to halls, people's living rooms, 5 people, 20 people, 100 people, and just answer every single question that they think are impossible questions. I'd love to do that. And I wouldn't even want a list of the questions in advance. I say to my people, if I can't answer a question and give you a gist of what I'm talking about after 20 seconds, I'm not the person who I claim to be. So there's not a question that I've stumbled over, even though you asked me that one day and I was answering, took me about 17 years to answer. But no, that's what I'd love. I want people to know I'm accessible. I've got a lot more to say, and I'm not tired of repeating myself. Repeating myself, or even repeating myself. If I was very funny, by the way. If I need to do, And there's no such thing as a stupid question. That's what I'd like people to listen to this and think, he sounds interesting. I want to hear more. And I'm more than willing to speak to people. No problem.
Cool. I mean, we just discussed off camera there that we're going to put your email in the description of the video so people can reach out and you can share information and things like that. Wrapping this up, anything else you got to say? Any last words for this recording, documentary, interview, whatever we want to call it?
Again, my passion is people. My previous passion was my clothes. This is only half of what I've got. If somebody was looking for something and they think, can I have it? Or can I buy it or whatever? That's all available. I do books, I do pictures, I do everything. Carpets, sofas, a lot. And it's all about financing the dream of Ghana. Remember, I had no desire to go to Ghana. I'm not from Ghana. I went in the 80s. However, I've got this incredible pull to go there again. And if somebody wanted to know, even if it wasn't Ghana, they wanted just to know advice about how to start somewhere else or whatever, I'm prepared to talk about that and anything, even my big feet.
Incredible. Well, that's it. That's it. Amazing. I appreciate your time today, and your stuff will be in the description, everything like that. But thank you very much for giving me the time to speak to you as well. I appreciate it a lot.
You're welcome. Thank you.